Romano, great to have you on the SRMC Tribe Podcast, mate. Obviously, we've known you a long time. You're on the recent course, SRMC 59, top student. I'm sure you're going to mention it anyway. But you actually booked on, I believe, SRMC 3. Couldn't make it because you've had some work commitment, like the busiest man in security, or the most known man in security anyway. And I think you're on SRMC 12, 19, 35, 37.
Like this bloke's never coming on.
And it was a bit of a joke in the office that this guy, he's never, and we could always tell, you genuinely wanted to come on course, but you've got you're the bloke who never says no to a job, and obviously one of the things we're always flexible with, people understand that the work has got to take priority. But it was finally great to have you on course and spend 2 weeks.
Always make the free boozes on the alumni day.
Yeah, well, I mean, that goes without saying,
Well, and obviously we run, 2-3 alumni events a year in London, and we've got to know you through them prior to coming on course. And networking is a key thing for yourself. You're a big advocate for it, and I suppose that's part of obviously not just your personality, but of how you've done so well in the space you're in. And obviously, the reason we invite people on the podcast is just to share their story, and I think you've got a pretty good story.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Let's start on when you were born, at birth, and whenever you want to start your journey. I know you had a bit of
another fellow who's a German as well.
Yeah, another German as well.
Another German.
We have a theme, mate. He keeps inviting his German friends.
And Welsh friends, German and Welsh friends.
Well, listen, guys, great to see you. And thanks so much for inviting me along. You'll be pleased to know that actually this is the first time I've sat in a hot chair, and this is the first podcast that I've done. So
what could go wrong?
What could go wrong? Exactly. No, I mean, it's a real delight and pleasure to be sat here with you guys. And I mean that genuinely. So, where do I start? I mean, us three, we go way back in regards to time spent with one another and in each other's company. So I think this has done a full circle now in regards to me sort of badgering the pair of you going, I really want to come and do the course. And as you mentioned, having done the course and done really well on the course as well, which I'm super proud of.
I mean, you had 10-year run up, mate, to be fair.
10 years to get ready for it. That's right. I think if we wheeled it right back, I was born in the late 70s and I was born in Germany. Kind of come from some real tough, humble beginnings, as a lot of people, as what we find out with a lot of people these days. Kind of single parent family. Don't know my real father. Real sort of Mediterranean. Hence the good skin and the good looks.
All year round tan.
All year round tan. Mum was from London, but was born in Germany. So I've got a real German side to me because my grandparents were German too. And I can't really remember the early years much, if I'm completely honest with you, aside from sort of real early on. It was, a lot of trouble, a lot of strife, a lot of drama, a lot of hysteria, a lot of screaming, a lot of shouting. And I think that's as far back as I've managed to block it out from the earlier years. And that kind of really led the path into my junior years. My mum, she then met my stepfather, who was in the military, and he was a tankie. And then I started sort of remembering a lot of stuff. And I've always been pretty good at compartmentalizing grief, stress, trauma. And the early sort of junior years were spent in Germany, whilst my stepfather was posted over in Paderborn. And we went back to Tidworth and went over to Wiltshire for a couple of years. That I can remember. And I also remember my mum, just being very stressed a lot and not really understanding what was going on with sort of the ways and the culture and stuff like that back in England. And as a soldier's wife, I moved around a lot. And I think to date, I think I'm at about 27 different addresses that I've lived at. So a lot of upheaval, a lot of uprooting. But
your mother's German, is she?
Mum's from London, but was brought up in Germany because her mum's German. So my grandma's German. Her dad was English. He was in the war. And after the war, my granddad Charlie, after the war, he went back to Germany and drove a taxi in Berlin, and then met my grandma. My grandma's just had a 90th birthday. So, she's still, I'd like to say, going strong, but, I try and get over there when I can. I think that's important. So I just, remember the sort of junior years being quite tough for me. Very, very, very disruptive. I had lots of energy. I was really enthusiastic about being outside. But then it was very controlling as well, certainly from a lot of the aggression and the violence and the stress that I was under from a homestead. So behind closed doors, it was a tough environment.
A lot of school changes as well then if you're moving that much.
Yeah, and I think it was at a British Army school that was English run in Germany, and that was my junior years, and that kind of then sort of led into being labelled as quite disruptive, bit of a troublemaker. But again, these are things that you don't really know in your junior years. You can't really label as what you're labelled nowadays, and kind of fast forwarding completely, I spent 3 years in the education system when I left the military, and I'm going to sort of talk about that later in the interview. But again, we went to a thing called the Rhine Army Summer Show. It was a thing called the RAS. It was huge over in Germany at the time, and it was military families would get invited, and there was all bands and there's all sorts of stuff going on. And I just remember the first time I'd ever seen a proper army tent, and what we know now as a 9x9, just green canvas. And I was just forced into this chair, just sat down, and I had a pen and paper put in front of me, and I was made to answer a few maths and English questions. And I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing and why I'm here doing it. But it turns out that was the entrance exam to going and attending a naval military boarding school in North Wales, which then sort of led into my secondary school years, or GCSE years.
So you lined up to join the military from going to school like that, or is it?
It was. I don't think it was ever the premise of. Certainly, this is the 90s now, so 91. It's the last of the old school of what we know. A lot of hard knocks. A lot of the lads went on and joined the Royal Marines, joined the Royal Navy. I joined the British Army, but 1 minute I'm sat in this tent, and then the next minute I've got this tag around me from British Airways because I'm travelling on my own at 10 years old from Germany to North Wales, looking like Paddington Bear with this brown suitcase, travelling through London and up on the train to Crewe and then to North Wales. And then when the train eventually stopped at where I had this bit of paper where I needed to go, it was the longest name of the Welsh town that you can imagine.
It's a strong shout at 10 years old.
Yeah. So, the reason why I'm talking about that is, this is all part of resilience, and who in their right mind now, would send their 10-year-old child, again, across the seas, different lands, different countries, and, manage and get it done. And I think it was a different mindset back then. So yeah, there I was. It was the first intake of these year ones, we'll call it, which is now sort of year sevens if we're looking at the education system. So year 7, and I just remember just meeting this giant of a man called who at the time I thought was a giant of a man, a guy called Jack Simpson, a Scottish guy. And yeah, there I was, starting my sort of secondary school education at this Naval Military Academy, Naval Military Boarding School, which now subsequently is the Joint Forces Adventure Training Place called Indefatigable. So that's, and again, I think it would take a book or another podcast to start telling you about some of the stories about what happened in those 5 years. But you can imagine, you've got 300-400 lads spread over 5 years, and some real tough characters.
Lord of the Flies types.
Lord of the Flies, real attrition. It's kill or be killed in that sort of sense. But there was a lot of, again, I've come from aggression, violence, stress, fighting, defense, having to really defend yourself in the home, to now I'm having to do it year on year with the different guys that I'm with. And, I look back at those 5 years with some sadness, a lot of fondness, but I always try and pluck out actually what was important in those 5 years. And it always wheels back to, showing some resilience, showing some real sort of hearty resilience, never giving up, always moving forward, saving face. And I didn't get it right a lot of the times, and I upset a lot of people, and I was upset a lot as well. But I kind of, there was a lot of bullying that went on, unfortunately. And then suddenly, sort of 3 years into being at the school, I must have had, well, it definitely wasn't a growth spurt, if anyone knows me. But I played rugby, and I just kind of grew a pair, and learned to sort of mitigate some risks and to, tackle some challenges that I was faced with. And next thing 5 years have elapsed, and I think I definitely sailed on the side of potentially being kicked out a few times, but I've got to hand it to the school, and if there's anybody out there who's still listening that was a teacher, a tutor, somebody who looked after me from a house admin side of life and a housemaster, I want to thank them. And I suppose this is the first time in my 45 years that I've actually been on a platform enough to be able to thank somebody that forged who I am now.
Yeah. Did it end well for you, the school time? Like once you've gone through that adversity of the first few years, did you sort of leave with, obviously you got some memories, but did you leave on a good standard? Did you do all right in the exams and carried on? Or
unfortunately, no. Yes, I left with a bit of identity, but academically I struggled, and that's always been a bit of a thread, a bit of a theme moving through my adult education as well, because my birthday falls in September, and I kind of got the feeling that my mum just wanted me out of the way. They really sort of pushed to get me in the earlier intake, so I should have been in the next year. Yeah, so academically I struggled. Sport and fitness.
So you were one of the, what does that work out? One of the youngest?
I was the youngest. Yeah, I definitely was the youngest. Sport and fitness I excelled at. Again, being out, that energy, that enthusiasm. German, I spoke fluent German at that time, so I did my German GCSE. But again, your real sort of core subjects that you needed. Yeah, I struggled a little bit. And then from there, I just kind of, I had to then, mitigate where I was going and what I was doing from there.
Straight into the military from there, or?
No, I was in London, and I was with my stepdad. He'd left the military, got the redundancy. We're talking mid-90s now, and I could tell that he just didn't want me around. And there was a lot of bad things that happened, unfortunately. And, and I'm not a doom and gloom guy. I mean, you guys know me very well. But if you have your earlier years, 15, 16 years, your initial years, setting the benchmark of, a lot of stress, drama, violence, and that then carried on. So I found myself homeless in London for a few days, chucked out, with a thick ear. Again, mid-90s, and I'm like, okay, what do we do? Where do I go? How do I tackle this? How would anyone else do it? And I wheeled back to, those moments of discipline, adversity, the stuff that I'd just been through for 5 years in boarding school, and I used that. I used that to my advantage. And one minute I'm, sleeping rough for a few days, and then the next minute I've managed to get myself into a bed sit, and I'm a labourer for a roofing company working on Sinead O'Connor's house in London. So again, how things change.
I didn't know a bit about you sleeping rough, mate.
Yeah, I mean...
What age were you then? Like literally straight out of school?
I was 16. Mate, yeah. I mean, it was a few days.
Yeah.
It was managing, it was a few days. But it doesn't matter whether it's a few hours. When you don't
Well, you don't know it's going to be a few days, do you? It could have been longer.
Yeah, and in London, we're talking 1995 now. We're talking, there was just madness going on. But again, I just turned it all round as best I could. And And then I went and worked for this roofing company, and then I went and worked at lots of different places, and I ended up in Canary Wharf working for a removals company. I'm not going to say the name in case they're still going now, but I'll never forget for all of about moving a truck from 15 feet just to the loading bay doors because it was raining. And bearing in mind, I couldn't even reach the pedals, let alone reverse this truck. But as who I was, I thought, no, I can do this. So I've ended up ripping the loading bay doors off. And there you go. That was the end of my removal career. as I'm handed a P45, a frozen turkey and a 2-litre bottle of vodka. And I'm stood there in this office with the foreman, and I said, A, I'm not allowed to drink because I'm not 18 yet. B, I don't have an oven to cook this frozen turkey. And C, please don't sack me.
Yeah.
But that was it. That was that was my time in the removal business. So there I was, 1995 going into 1996, and I'm like, yes, something has to change here. Something has to change. But I mean, there are so many different anecdotes, so many different stories, so many different things that I could talk about. But a lot of it is all about, how I've managed to kind of get myself out of the situations I've maybe found myself in, whether it be self-induced or not. So,
what was the moment you decided to join the military?
I mean, I was out of London. I was living with friends. I was sofa surfing. I was picking leaks. Yes, yeah. I worked as a leak cutter. I worked valeting cars. Just coming back smelling of onions. Yeah, I was living up in Peterborough, working on the land at the time. And again, that's a different story how I ended up there. But I just I remember I walked past the careers office on the way to I think I was working valeting some cars at 17 I think, and I think at that point I just thought, okay, there had to be a natural lineage from my stepfather to the Naval military boarding school to always having some affiliation with the military, and I thought I can do this. So that is it. As raw as it gets there, I didn't know I'd do it on the day.
Didn't put you off the military then, the upbringing you had in and around that, and
no,
without going into all your challenges, it didn't put you off at all.
No, I think I was always fit, healthy, strong. And I was always really driven, motivated, enthusiastic, energetic. All the big sort of buzzwords that we use. To anybody else nowadays, you would label our young people something else. But I had a bit of energy, so I walked in and I said to the guy, this could potentially be a last chance saloon for me right now. I said, but I'd like to join the army. So gave him some sort of background and stuff like that, and I found myself in the army. Just yeah.
And was there a sort of choice of regiment at that point, or had you just gone, I want to go infantry? Did you have any sort of plans before you sort of stepped in there?
Believe it or not, coming from the Naval military boarding school, I kind of had something to do with the Navy and something to do with sort of the technical side of life. It's all I remember really from school. But no, there was nothing. And then I ended up in the army, which is the complete irony. But yeah, so we're sitting down, you're doing your normal barb test, and I ended up in the military, and I ended up sort of steering towards the infantry, but within a short space of time, moved towards the logistics side of life. So became a logistician, a driver by trade, and then subsequently what happened over the next sort of 16 years. I don't think I ever really, and if there's friends that are watching this and old bosses and peers, they'll know straight away that getting into a set of coveralls and greasing some bits up on an engine was just not my thing. So I definitely joined the wrong corps. But at the same time, I made the best of what I was doing with the jobs that I was, afforded to do, and what I got selected to go and do as well.
How long do you serve?
I did 16 years, shy of 16 years. So, a few tours in that time. I did sort of 5 different jobs, but I spent a long time out of the 16 years as a physical training instructor. And again, PT being another sort of theme and thread. I was selected to go and do my protective mobile skills because coming from a driving background, protective mobile skills with the close protection with the RMP guys. And I went down to Longmoor and did the course there. And then I was afforded the opportunity to deploy with those guys and was one of the soldiers that went back into Afghanistan in 2006. So, yeah, a bit of kudos there working with those guys, which was amazing, which was fantastic. And I'm still in touch with some of those lads now. I worked and what else did I do? I did the PTI I did the RMP, became a paratrooper, so an airborne soldier.
What was that like? Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I mean, that for me was a rites of passage. It was something that I've wanted to do ever since I joined the military. And I think with potentially a little bit more guidance, a bit of parent management potentially, or somebody to maybe have seen something else in me, then potentially the parachute regiment or the Royal Marines or something as a frontline teeth arm unit would have probably been the better shout for me. But again, hindsight's a wonderful thing.
You got that by going, earning doing your P company and all that stuff. You would have, I'm assuming, got attached as an attached rank to their operation at some point, or
I mean at that point I'd actually done that later in my career, but I'd attempted it twice in regards to just going on a pre-para back in the earlier days of my army career, and then I was on a pre-para. I then made it up to Catterick, and then on the thing called the Superman punch, where you have to jump. You're running at about 30 foot up in the air. You're running on these scaffold planks, and you have to run and jump over this large gap and punch through a cargo net. Well, in typical bad luck Romano fashion, I've ended up punching the cargo net, and it snapped my little finger because it's caught my hand and bent my finger all the way back. And it was like, that was a screening day. So I've basically snapped my finger back, and I think the medics seen me do it, and instantly on that point, which is something that you shouldn't have done, my hand blew up like a balloon, and I tried to carry on. He kind of looked at me, he said, "Nah, that's it, you're done." So that was that attempt, and I thought, yeah, is this ever going to happen? But it did, and I did really well. And one of the things I'll say a lot on this podcast is that you should always celebrate your own success, because nobody else is going to do it for you. And at that point, I was super happy, got the coveted maroon beret, and that really sort of set the scene for the 5 years that happened towards the end of my career, working with 16 Air Assault, working within the brigade, working with 13 Air Assault Regiment that I was part of, in and out of the gym. And then...
You still as a PTI then, is that how it works?
It was a PTI, but then I was an airborne section commander as well within a driver troop. But at that point then, the guys were coming back off tour. I was working within the sort of the military training wing side of life, as well as the gym. And then there was a trawl come out to work with the Pathfinders. And what they were looking for is they were looking to inflate the Pathfinder platoon into a brigade reconnaissance force ready for an operational tour. And I jumped at the chance. There was a few people that recommended me to go and give it a go. And I jumped at the chance as a RLC driver, logistician, to go there and really sort of make my mark and give it a go. And this was the Christmas 2009, December 2009. And then next thing you know, I'm climbing up Jacob's Ladder in the Brecon Beacons in January, whilst they've got a PF selection going on, a Pathfinder Carder selection going on, and this brigade reconnaissance force Carder going on. And I'm like, what am I doing? This is hard. Yeah, this is hard, And it was one of the hardest things that I'd done. It really was. And it was testing, it was challenging. I was a RLC driver logistician. And
how long is it?
It ran alongside the same length of time as the PF Carder, as the Pathfinder Carder. So it was 6 weeks, and what they were trying to do is basically make this platoon's worth of guys into a huge fighting unit that would then deploy and become, the brigade's reconnaissance asset. And through some real tough times on that course, fortunately I was successful enough to have passed the Carder and been past the reconnaissance brigade reconnaissance Carder, and I was invited in to be one of their brigade reconnaissance soldiers, which for me, when we talk about defining moments, that was huge for me. That was huge, and I deployed to Afghanistan, and I'd never been in a real teeth arm fighting frontline role like that before. So it was later on in my career, but I'm still in touch with lots of people from that time, and I'm still proud of the references that I received from that. And it was a challenge. It was a real challenge at that time.
Quite a mixed career there, mate. Isn't it?
Yeah,
you've done quite a lot in that time.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've missed a few bits out as well, but it's that has really set the tone and the scene for the past 13 years as a freelancer, as a contractor after I left the military. So,
and what year did you sort of leave then? And why did you leave?
Yeah, I opted for the phase 2 redundancy, and at that time, after having worked with the Pathfinder platoon and the Brigade Reconnaissance Force, there were a few peers and a few people that knew me within 13 Air Assault Regiment that said, "Don't leave, don't apply for it. You're going to do pretty well, on the back end of this." And I just thought it's probably time to jump rather than be pushed. That was kind of my mindset. Because unfortunately in the military, one of the things I hadn't mentioned, and I think maybe a few people might be quite surprised that I will mention it, is that unfortunately through some ill discipline, I'd got myself into quite a bit of trouble in the army, which resulted in some time in MCTC in Colchester in the glass house, and that really, it's kind of set the scene after I left there that I would change my ways, use stuff as a force multiplier, try and do better at every opportunity.
Defining moments, man.
Yeah.
Sliding door moment as well.
Yeah, it gives you a bit of a career check as well, doesn't it? Something like that. Get on you, makes you sort of reevaluate what you want to do next, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I realised at the time that, it's monumental, it's huge, but I didn't realise the impact of getting into trouble through, back what we would have considered some real sort of boisterous behaviour, drinking, partying, fighting. It's I obviously understand the fighting element is a level of ill discipline, and I get that. And unfortunately, that came back to haunt me and to bite me quite badly, and certainly more so in the in my current sort of life and role. That it still does feel like a bit of a ball and chain around my neck sometimes when I apply for different jobs and stuff like that. So, yeah, I thought I'd had a good run. And having worked with the Pathfinders and been part of that Brigade Reconnaissance Force, that was that was a real baptism of fire for me. And I thought at that point I'm gonna jump rather than be pushed. So that's kind of how I finished my career on a real high. And that was the other part as well. I felt it was quite high to sort of bow out.
So what year we talk?
So that was 2012.
2012. So that was you then exiting out into. Yeah, civilian and next career.
Yeah, that was December 2012, and what kind of then spurred me to then go and do my CP course in Hereford, my med courses in Hereford, and a few of the other courses. It was the time that I'd spent with the RMP CPU guys. So again, I kind of sort of segued, and I thought, no, I could do this. I unfortunately caught the Afghan PSD and the Iraq PSD too late. the bubble had burst at that point. You know, the heyday of people making some real
On the gold rush of it.
the gold rush. Yeah. You know, and I'd never ventured into the maritime route, but I've listened to the podcast that you've done.
Even that, by that point, was already on the decline.
Exactly. Yeah.
What year?
2012.
Yeah, that was just
Pretty much done then, wasn't it?
I mean, I knew people that were heavily involved. You know, different companies, some of the bigger companies as well. And I thought, okay, I'm going to give this a go, but it wasn't as easy as what I thought it was to try and get out there, because, you know, they weren't just taking guys to fill slots. You know, this was some more specialist roles and stuff like that. I did eventually find my way out there, and I didn't have the best time. You know, I didn't enjoy it, unfortunately. You know, and I don't know whether or not I didn't enjoy it because it wasn't a role that I was doing that I enjoyed, whether it was the team, whether it was me, whether I wasn't ready to step into the civilian world, or whether I was mature enough to do the job that I was doing. And I'm, you know,
very honest of you.
But you guys know me very well. And one thing that you've always had with me is a level of transparency and full disclosure. You know, if I was to look back now, would I do things differently? Of course. What, you know, 1000%, but you can't ever sort of go back. You only have to sort of take the
It's never about its challenges, is it? You know, stepping into that civilian world when you've had a decent length of service in the military as well, and you know all the things that went on. It's you wouldn't be alone in having those challenges when you first leave.
I mean, you know, sitting here, you know, as I say, this is the first time I've had the platform to talk about my life, my journey, you know, my military career, the stuff that had happened before. And this is by no way and no shape a boohoo moment. You know, there's a lot of people out there that have had it tougher, but all you can focus on yourself is the microscope is looking inwards, and it was tough, but I always try to make a bad situation funny or a bad situation good. And you know, people that know me, you know, humor is huge for me, and that level of humility and empathy too. And that, I think all the things that I went through have really stood me in good stead to who I am now. And it sounds sort of quite deep and dramatic and quite woo to some people, but for me, it's all I know. It's all I know.
I suppose, mate, obviously you left the military now. Probably a common theme that some of our guests have had, or people leaving the military, is that what sort of next? You know, you've got a background. You know, you've got a big investments gone into you over 16 years. You're leaving a tribe and a brotherhood. Do you have any sort of struggles in that next start before you went into your career, or do you find it quite smooth?
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't find it smooth. I was faced with some real dilemmas. First and foremost, where I was going to live, where I was going to go, who I was going to sort of surround myself with. And I think as quite a common theme for the lads within 16 Brigade, with the Airborne Brigade, Colchester affords you a massive safety net, a huge safety net. And I think a lot of the lads, and certainly a lot of my peer group and friends that I stayed in touch with throughout the whole brigade, they ended up making some roots in Colchester, in Essex, and I did too, you know. And I thought that was it would be good for me being around the guys that were just a stone's throw away, some in the military still in camp and some out, and I'm still very, very good and close friends with a lot of the guys that have settled down there. And Colchester is a hell of a town, and it afforded me so much freedom, and I became friends with some excellent people, both in and out of the military. And I thought, okay, you know, I'm finding my own way here, my own feet. But I just suddenly realised then it's okay surrounding yourself with people, but I got to work. And I think that for me at that point was, okay, I've done my close protection course, I've done my med course. through my fitness, health and fitness, and being a physical training instructor, I then spent extra money and became a civilian PT. I thought, well, I'm quid's in here. I'm going to be okay. I couldn't have been further from the truth. And I think a lot of that came from the temptations that were there within the civilian world of, okay, well, there's no real pressure for me to get a job right now because I've got a few quid in the pocket from the redundancy, and I became really complacent. And that complacency then crept into partying at the weekends, to not having to worry about things. And suddenly then 6 months developed into 8 months, into a year. And although I did some really cool stuff within that year because the pressure was off financially, I didn't have anybody dependent on me, I suddenly realized I'm burning through my money quicker than I could have ever thought. So, you get to the end of year one of being out the military, and now I'm faced with the dilemma that I haven't actually really put any sort of real roots down from a professional standpoint, and now I'm going to have to start again. And I've already been out a year, and I've burnt through so much money through, partying and going different places and doing different things. I mean, I was really successful in an interview that I had with David Lloyd's as a PT. I think there was 16 that were being interviewed. It was a day's trial, and I was offered the job up in Ipswich at David Lloyd's and up in Ipswich, which was fantastic. And I thought, brilliant, I'm going to be the next big PT. Less than 3 months in, I handed my notice in. And I think I handed my notice in because it was quite liberating to do. I wasn't kind of happy with the setup that they had there, whether they were happy with my delivery or not, but I just wanted to feel what it was like just to hand my notice in.
It's a hard game to make money in that as well.
Yeah.
And to do anything, you have to, like mega on social hours. Yeah. And we all did little bits of that when we left. It was like the go-to in it for a lot of people.
Yeah, and again, it was a natural sort of segue. The close protection, the PT, it was the world that I knew. It was the world that I'd come from. And great gym, excellent facilities. I can still remember the guy who I became friends with in Colchester, who afforded me the opportunity to go up there and sort of recommended me. A guy called Adam, and fair play to him. And I think the theme with this is highlighting people that gave me that chance, gave me the leg up, gave me the opportunity to, I think everyone needs a leg up. Everyone needs a chance. Everybody needs somebody to take a punt on them. And so he did that, and I went and smashed the day, got offered the job, did the job, and then just thought, yeah, this isn't for me. And I think that was the hardest part as well, just realizing what is for you, especially out of the military, because in the army or in the military, you're very much force fed, where you're going, what you're doing and how you're going to do it. You're not having to think about things too much. So, another great thing that I did is I found myself just replying back to an ad. And again, because I was not under any sort of real constraint, pressure, timeline, nothing financially. There was nobody sort of saying, oh, you've got a mortgage to pay, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, you've got kids to, the mouths to feed. I didn't have any of that. So I was really wild, loose, just wanted to sort of put my stamp on everything that I could, because all I'd known is the military from such a young age. And I ended up finding myself at an airfield in Watford, just outside Watford. And I was just told, replied to an advert, would you like to feature in a film? I was like, yeah, why not? And I ended up finding myself doing a forward role in front of this guy who was a real top stunt man. And he said, yeah, well done. You're now going to be in Fury with Brad Pitt. So, and again, that had all the hallmarks of Romano, 16 years in the military, having left, and the craziness that ensued for the next sort of, 13 years beyond that. So, and it was whilst I was there, they said, okay, yeah, you've got something about you. You're not just going to be an extra or a supporting artist, is what it's called now. Would like you to be in charge of a small little team of guys. And, we'll come to you, they'll answer to you, and we'll sort of muster and manage with you, and we'll go through the film. And, I had the best 6 months on and off filming that. in different locations in the UK. So
what sort of things were you doing on that? What was your role?
I mean, as an extra, as a supporting artist, I was.
You playing like enemies?
No, yes. So I played enemy. I played I was in a German uniform at one point.
Bring back to the family roots.
Well, yeah, exactly. We sort of wheeled it right back there, but I was in this American uniform, and I was one of the infantry commanders behind one of the main tanks. And if anybody's seen the film, you can just about see me in a few of the clips. But the beauty of that was that it gave me that camaraderie of being around like-minded individuals again, and a lot who were in the military at that point, and a lot of the guys who were heavily featured extras and had done lots of stuff. And that was the first foray into the Hollywood TV and film in front of the camera. And I thought, wow, this is brilliant. I could do this for a job. And again, another theme. I've gone from David Lloyd's to then forward rolling in the field and being part of Fury. And if anybody's not watched it, I would definitely say go and watch it, because it's an excellent film. And I don't think it, definitely received the accolades it deserved to. But
yeah, it's a great film.
No, it was a fantastic film.
I'm a bit of film buff, and I haven't actually seen that.
You've not seen it?
No,
I enjoy it, mate. Charlie Buff's good in it. His character.
Yeah, he's
He actually
fantastic.
chipped his own tooth for it, didn't he?
Yeah, he was like honking, but good.
I cut his face with a knife.
Excellent. That's exactly what I was going to say. It was the fact that he was told by the director, right, don't do anything to kind of upstage anybody else.
Oh, he didn't wash, did he?
Yeah, well, he didn't wash, and obviously the cutting himself, that was actually happening. He cut his cheek as well. And there was, obviously, we all sign NDAs, but again, I'm not giving the game away, far from it. But there was obviously things that I saw and what we were all doing on that production. But there was a guy there that I met, and I'd met him at Bryce Norton when I was trying to do my jumps and get qualified as a paratrooper, as an airborne paratrooper. And there was a guy there called Paul Biddis, and anybody that listens to this now knows that I've been hugely affiliated with Paul since that day, really, and he was there managing, organising this boot camp, and I was friends with him. And I've stayed friends with him, and he is the go-to guy in Hollywood at the moment, and certainly here in the UK and all around the world as the main leading military advisor and technical advisor in the film and TV industry.
Yeah, he got a mention on Graham Norton recently, didn't he?
Yeah, and Eddie Redmayne, that he did The Day of the Jackal.
Oh, I did see that clip actually.
Eddie Redmayne.
That's what you shared, maybe. I've not all seen it.
Yeah, I mean, I for him as a person, he's a friend, but also, I work with him, for him. He, pushes me towards the production companies as an assistant military and technical advisor. And I've had some amazing opportunities through this guy.
Is that his first film then as well?
I think that was his first.
No, I know what he did. Sorry. Is that the war?
Monuments Men?
No, what's the one? Oh, it's a war film. 1917.
So he did 1917. Yeah, with Mendes. Yes.
Isn't that his first one? Sure, it was something on
Fury
TV.
Before that, wasn't it?
No, Fury was way before that.
Oh, sorry.
And then Monuments Men are what he did after that. I'm sure it is. He was approached. The story goes, and it's well publicised, that he afforded a little bit of advisory to George Clooney on a particular scene. They liked what he was saying, and he thought, and obviously years had then passed. Years then went all the way through. And he thought that he could really, make a job, make a living out of it. And and I've actually spoke to him. I said, I'm coming on here. I said I was going to mention his name, because anybody that I mention today, I think it's really important that, like I said before, the people that give you the leg up, you should always celebrate their success. And you should always try and mention them, if you have a platform to mention them too. And there's so many people that I've been affiliated with that have given me that leg up, but I've worked hard for as well.
Yeah. You can see a difference. I presume a military ex-military people will notice much more. You know, when you see a film that is something not quite right in a military scene or something, it stands out a mile.
It's shit berry, and it'll
maybe the general public
sat on the wrong way round.
No, I think Heat, the Heat film, which is a poster of it downstairs. That was when we were in the military. That was the one they always showed, you know, where the fire maneuvers
for doing it right.
Yeah, break contact drills.
Definitely. And if there's any man who's really honed his craft, and I've learned a lot from him, through him. I mean, he's had me as an assistant military advisor, technical advisor on Napoleon with Ridley Scott, and of late Gladiator 2, from start to finish. You know, to see a whole process through from start to finish. Again, it reminded me of the time working with the Pathfinder platoon and the Brigade Reconnaissance Force, because it was a start to finish moment. And that for me is really important, because you're seeing the fruits of your labour and you're seeing yourself develop as well.
2 massive, amazing films to be part of, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. I mean Gladiator 2, it's
scale of them.
Huge.
Yeah.
Monumental. And the people that I met, the locations that I went to, the responsibility that I had within the team. You know, there was 5 of us within the team, Paul at the helm, and the responsibility and the autonomy that he affords you to get it right, because the pressure's on. You know,
what sort of things are you teaching them on that? You're teaching the actors or extras, or
because neither of you or Paul were in Roman times to actually know how they...
Well, I mean, yeah, and this is the big thing that people always say. It's like, well, what do you know? You weren't about. No, I may not have been about, but if there's anything that Paul does right, is that he studies and he looks and he reads. And
all military tactics are based on something from at some point in history.
Of course.
They're still based on it loosely, and
a lot of them are actually the same.
Yeah. And there's there's a thread and there's a theme throughout it as well. So my level of responsibility in my area of operations within that is I was teaching and instructing on the artillery pieces that they used on the boats, and I ran all the guys through that in Morocco. Me and a couple of the other boys that I was with, and John and Mark and Dave. You know, our team of guys. So that was Morocco. I did that for a couple of months. I did the archery stuff. You know, I don't come from an archery background, but if there's something that I need to learn to be part of something this big, I'm going to learn it. And then the marching was massive, because you're marching with a pilum, a scutum, a gladius, so a shield, a spear, and a sword. You know, and you're marching, you're getting these guys to march in time. Now, the beauty of what we had in Morocco is that these were Moroccan military. They were actually serving Moroccan military guys, the majority of them, and then they got huge crews of guys from all around Morocco. And Morocco was an amazing experience, because it was on the same place where they filmed the first Gladiator, in Ben Haddou, and where the arena was.
Yeah, because they used the same arena, didn't they?
They used the same arena, yeah. So all that, and I mean, for us being ex-military, it was a staple diet in any guard room when you were on guard to watch Band of Brothers and Gladiator.
Well, Band of Brothers. This is what I saw something on TV. You know, on the Gladiator, where they on the number 2, where they fill up the Colosseum's full of water.
Yes.
They do that sort of. They do that scene where they're kind of attacking the boats.
The boats, that's right.
But that was actually real. They actually did fill water.
That is real.
I didn't realise.
I thought it filled the Colosseum. Well, they used to do that.
Yeah, they used to fill the water. They designed it to fill the water.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, regardless of what I've seen and how I saw it, you know, the experience of seeing it for yourself in person and how they make these things happen. You know, we lean into and heavily rely on CGI now, but actually when it isn't CGI and it's actual these boats that are on this water, I mean, it was just amazing to be part of. It was fantastic. And Malta for me, and the Colosseum in Malta, and how that was, and the scale of it, I can't ever sort of really describe to people. You know,
well, I suppose in all the sort of marching scenes of like the thousands of men, I suppose the public watching now going, well, how hard is that? But like, how hard is it to learn in the military to everything to move in the exact time?
I mean, yeah.
I suppose you said you use military. It's a smart move for a film company to use actual military people for those sort of scenes, but still to get all them perfect, it's not a 2-minute job, is it?
Well, the year before, so a couple of years before, I was part of the boot camp, the training, and I think we ran 7 or 8 boot camps in Hounslow Barracks, which was a barracks that was used by Wellington to fight the troops against Napoleon. So that was real time. That was the enormity of it. And we trained the supporting artists to march, and that was
Napoleon.
For Napoleon.
Yeah.
And again, then there's a sort of theme that we were being used for the boot camps to march for Gladiator 2 as well. And it's not easy, it's not. Fortunately, what you have is you have a lot of ex-military now that, Paul has, sets the stall, and, you have to meet or see a certain criteria from an age, from a build, from a height, from your fitness abilities. And a lot of people are coming through and they're ticking off the criterias, and they're in a position to be able to march or, take instruction really well. But Napoleon, as far as I can remember, was the first time in a huge amount of time where they'd actually formed the square properly with no CGI, just with the guys doing it. I think it's like 500 guys forming this line to column to square, and that was what I was part of to train these guys. It was huge, monumental. Yeah.
Going back to Gladiator, didn't you have a small part on the film as well? Is that right?
Yes. So
your arm.
Yeah. So I shook somebody's arm. I shook somebody's hand, and he looked at my arm and went, "Are your arms hairy?" And I said, I'm not quite sure why, but I lifted up my sleeves. He said, "Okay, cool." He said, just so you know, you're going to have all your arms shaved. You're going to have your tattoos covered. You're going to be branded with a makeup artist, and you're now going to be one of the lead actors, arm and chest double. And I said, right, okay, that's a first, so let's make it happen. So yeah, in the film you can actually see my back, unless they've cut that bit out, but you can see my back and my arm, and as I'm handing over this sword to the lead actor. So yeah, that was also something else that I did.
You got on the credits as well, I'll take it. You
got on the credits.
On the credits.
Yeah, got on the credits.
Amazing.
Yeah, and again, I talk about it with real fun and fondness. And to think of all the adversity that I've gone through and all the hardship and all the stress and the struggle, actually, when you're part of something like that, all that doesn't matter, it dissipates, because you're part of something big again. And again, when I find myself in these arenas and this space, from a teaching, from a instruction, from a delivery point, it's my USP, it's my unique selling point. It's what I'm really good at. And it's what I enjoy doing. So being in front of people, and, some people would say, yeah, he's just so gobby. Well, maybe I am, but, it's getting that point across, doing it with some real humility and empathy, but getting the job done. The learning outcomes at the end of the day, Paul says, or whoever says, this is what I need you to teach them. Here's where I need these guys to be, and make it happen. And I absolutely love that autonomy that we're afforded, to make it happen.
Got any other films bubbling away in the pipeline?
I've just been left alone on a production in Estonia, and I can talk about it now because it's actually been released already. And I worked massively in Estonia, and then some time in the UK on a Paramount Plus spy thriller with Michael Fassbender and Richard Gere on The Agency. And that was unreal, because I'm suddenly, training through Paul's instruction, suddenly training these Ukrainian actors to be Ukrainian Special Forces guys a mile from the Russian border.
I watched that one the other day.
Which again is a pinch me moment, real pinch me moment. And then the stuff that we did back in the UK. So nothing as yet that's come to fruition, but I've got a few irons in the fire from the film and TV, and my normal jobs, of security, risk management.
Well, I was just going to say that, mate. Obviously you're jumping about, like you're in Ukraine, you're in all the other, you're always working. You're always jumping on the next task. As I said at the beginning, you're the bloke who never says no to a job, which means
one of the best networkers we know.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
Do you still enjoy? Is it the film stuff you'd like to go more into, or do you still enjoy doing, the actual security consultancy, the advisory, the the contracting type work you do in some of the hot places we got going on at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, when I sit and talk to people and describe, who I am and where I've been and what I do, the core element of what I do is I'm a media security advisor, security consultant. I'm a close protection operative, and I work heavily in the security and risk management space, and to sort of try and define that, I work, with Nike as one of their sort of security consultants, through a guy called Dave Simmons and his team. I was fortunate enough to go to Ukraine with James Spensley, who's, head of risk at Sky, and worked with Mal Gear and his team at Prime Media Safety, what I call cutting your teeth, from a sort of real security element. So that will always and has always been my backbone, the core element of what I do best. And when it comes along and, meeting you guys and being on the SRMC and working my socks off for that time last year, well, that experience and becoming a consultant and the academia side of life was, it just piggybacks with the experience. And that's why, I came along and did what you guys, offer within the course.
Well, I think it worked out well for yourself, not actually coming on SMC3 where, by the time you eventually come on, having all the things, obviously we've missed out loads of things you've done in your career, commercially, not commercial sort of risk base, just made you better on course. You added so much more experience into your group, and probably why you went away with your prize as a sort of top student. But you mentioned the media stuff you've done. That's obviously a big area.
Yeah.
It's not a new big area, but it's a very popular area. People are either working in or want to go into working in media or news teams or journalism. What does that look like for people who don't know?
So in 2014, I was introduced to James Spensley and Mal Gear, and James was the ops manager for a company called Prime Media Safety. Mal Gear was the managing director, owned it, ran it, and I was fortunate enough to, again, reply to an advert and found myself in Farnborough at the air show, which they had the monopoly on, and they were putting bums on seats, and I was a close protection officer working for those guys in 2014. Through personality and through hard work, I became friends, very, very good friends and close friends with James for many years. And through James and through Mal, they saw something in me that actually, I could be left alone. I could have that responsibility, and I could work with different crews, different jobs, different tasks within the media space. So I went and completed a course and became a media security advisor through those guys. And for years and years, I did multiple tasks, multiple jobs, both, domestically and foreign and sort of foreign settings. And yeah, I think in the past few years, with everything that's gone on in the likes of Ukraine and the Middle East, there's a lot more people that have got the stamp of being a media security advisor now, naturally, because there were a lot more jobs, a lot more opportunities, a lot more openings. And I think it's a lot more prevalent now that actually media, TV, film, radio, anything involved with the media sphere and the media space needed some form of advisor, needed some form of safety advisor, security advisor.
Is that a case of how they see it? They go wherever they want, and you just got to kind of come up with some sort of solution to make it happen, sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean,
and backwatch a lot of the time.
Backwatching, yeah, that's what I knew as a backwatcher. And people, and the best way to try and explain it is in the simplest form. You've got the producer, the camera guy, camera woman, camera person, and the reporter. And we, as the security advisor, there's a backwatcher, will watch their backs when they're doing any pieces to camera, when they're in anywhere contentious, when they're doing doorstep interviews. I pushed heavily into the sports space. So a lot of the football, I did football for years, coverage, a lot of the sort of when the reporters are there covering the football events, I was there as a backwatcher, and I worked extensively up and down the country. Ukraine, again, James afforded me the opportunity to go with CNN and the team to go to Ukraine. And again, that was a real baptism of fire. Real hard eye opener as well. And again,
frontline stuff.
Yeah, frontline stuff. Yeah, frontline. And at that point, that's the first time I'd done anything of that magnitude. So it was a real learning. It was, again, another steep learning curve. And the team of guys I was working with and alongside, they then went on and did some real spicy stuff and spicy coverage with their teams. I did a few rotations, sort of Lviv over to Kyiv, and a few other sort of, breaking news stories and other bits and pieces that happened over there in the earlier days, kind of from March right the way through to sort of May, June time in 2022. So again, that was an eye-opener, but again, frontline, understanding risk and understanding actually how much needed to be signed off before you went out the door. Because I think a lot of people maybe have this interpretation in their mind that actually that's it, camera on the shoulder, off we go, breaking news story. But actually from a huge corporation and a huge network and from a risk assessment element, there was many layers, massive amount of layers that I had to learn about too.
It must keep it interesting, mate, the amount of different, people forget how large the SRM security risk management sector is. And how many different roles you can go into, and we've gone over a couple here with you, but you've worked across quite you've had a pretty varied career really, up to I'm sure it's going to keep evolving, but to have that for me, that I would imagine keeps it a bit more interesting. That you're not just doing the same sort of not just doing close protection roles. You're doing a bit of everything.
I've worked with ultra high network clients, and you maybe have had some guests on that talk about ultra high net worth. I've worked in that space. I've worked in the TV, film, media space, what I've spoken about, the media security advising space within the backwatching world, the sports space, again, with Nike. And if there's ever a way of where you see,
I was wondering, the trainers.
What's that, sorry?
The trainers.
Yeah.
I'm Adidas man.
Yeah. Always. I've always sort of worn Nike and branded with Nike. But again, that's good as well. And maybe I having worked and done the ultra high net worth and having done what is sort of described and what people may have in their head as a stereotypical bodyguard or close protection operative, I wanted to kind of forge a different niche within the security risk management space. Because there's a lot of us, and there's a lot of mouths to feed.
Well, you said, mate, you're one of the best networkers we know, and you, like you said, you like to see, you give credit to the people that have helped you, but you've actually helped a lot of people. And even when you're on course, I remember someone dropped in one of our community groups saying, I've seen this job going for Nike, a French speaker out in Paris. You haven't got any contacts, have you? And like within a second, you jumped in there. Yeah, I can put you in touch with so-and-so's. I don't know if they end up getting the role in the end, but even just to have that you're straight in there. Here's a contact. I'll put you in touch. Have a chat before you go for an interview, and it would have helped him, no doubt, massively. But things like that, I think, people often don't realise. They just assume it's just us doing it all the time. There's actually it's that vast network that we've got that helps each other out, and people like you, mate, are prime in that.
And I appreciate you saying those things, and it's really nice to hear. I take great pride in being able to put some bums on seats and connect the dots, whether those dots, whether anything ever comes to fruition.
But people don't forget that, mate. When you've done that, whether it came off of them or not, they'll be like, "Oh, what a good guy! He jumped straight in and tried to help me out there." That's
and I do believe that, and I never want anything for it. And I suppose in the grand scheme of things, that has been paid forward to me inadvertently as well. People have remembered, or my name has cropped up, and because I am the brand. So Romano Betts is the brand. I don't have a company, but I'm affiliated and I'm aligned to lots of different people, brands and companies, and collabed and worked with. As a lone wolf, and I'm not sure if people have sort of heard that saying, but as a lone wolf, it can be tough because everybody wants to be affiliated with a tribe, and we're wheeling right back to where we are now, and everybody wants to be connected with somebody, because I think, as what we spoke about on the SRMC, you can only go it alone for so long.
Yeah, strength in numbers.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I suppose like mate, just to add to what Dunk said, mate, you are generally, you know, really dig out for people and generally care and help people and if you can open doors, you know, and you're not looking for something back, I know it's increasing your network and everything else, but I think, you know, you are known for that, mate, as which is credit to you, I suppose. You know, and obviously you've been in, you know, whatever space is kind of the contracting space, but you're in different sectors. I suppose a hard thing of, you know, and whatever you want to do, I suppose we can talk about what you want to do for the future in a second, but you kind of like a rugby, let's go through rugby, like a rugby back who plays in a lot of positions.
Throw rugby into everyone's that's just the thing you keep doing.
You know, you're not just a centre, which sometimes can hold you back, I suppose, because you are known in these different spaces, like a kind of generalist, a utility back, then you can play everywhere, but not like, you know, you only go to Romano for TV work, for example. You kind of, you know, where do you see the next? Do you think? Do you?
It looks like you're carving out a bit of a niche in that space. From the outside, looking at you, we go, oh, he looks like that's where Romano's going. He's really sort of going into that media, TV, film space is becoming that's his thing. But
I mean, both of you, you know, highlighted some excellent points there, and they're both pluses and minuses. They're both frustrations, but real good chuck-ups too, you know, in regards to, you know, where people see me right now. So maybe at that point, people are less likely to steer me towards an opportunity because they may see me already carving out a niche. But again, when I talk about that contractor, that freelancer, that lone wolf environment, it's you have to stick your head above the parapet. You have to make yourself known. You have to let people know your availability. And you know, I'm fortunate enough now after 13 years where the phone does go. It goes irregularly, but when it does go, you know, people are asking me my availability. Can I come and work? Would I be interested in doing, you know, particular jobs? Love the film and TV stuff. I like that a lot. Love, you know, the responsibility and the autonomy of being a bodyguard, a close protection operative. But I think from what I've just come back abroad and working in a training and delivery space, you know, I like that training opportunity as well. I think that for me is something that really sort of hits home, given the responsibility to deliver on courses and stuff like that. So yeah, that's
good point there, mate, because you say just like a business, just like we market ourselves a certain way. And I think often individuals forget that you're your own brand, like your Romano's your brand. That you actually have to, you know, from our perception, it looks like you're the film guy. If you are still, you know, you want to get in the training roles, maybe just something to reflect on and go, actually, yeah, how do I market myself out there? And for other people, when they're watching in that are individual consultants, it's tricky business. You're a business at the end of the day. You've got to treat yourself like a business, whether you are or not.
And people will message me, and I will always try and give them the time that I can or the advice. I may not always get it right, and advice and opinions are so subjective. And there may be people that go, well, you know, have you done this job for 10 years with a particular client? Have you got your own client? No, I don't. But what I've done is I've not spread myself thinly, but I've got 4 or 5 different branches of my tree, which I really lean heavily into. And something that somebody who's quite important to me says a lot, and who I've worked with a lot, it says, you know, you should always stay in your lane. And it's something that I love to say, frustrates the hell out of people, but it's so true. But I don't take my own advice with that because I can't, because if I stayed just in one lane, then the others would subside. The branches would then just fall off, and I would just then have to really hammer home that one particular lane. And I don't think I'm in that position right now to do that.
Yeah, that's good advice, mate, because you could be down in that one lane and be really successful. And of course, you're just going to stay in that lane because that's all your success is constantly coming from there, and your opportunities then make sense to stay in that. But if you're getting bits from that you enjoy across the board, then why not? And
it is enjoyment. It is.
Not that I'm Jordan Peterson here, mate, but maybe it goes back to what you said at the beginning of the podcast of your upbringing,
massively
27 addresses, the numerous different roles you had in the military. maybe that's just who you are, mate.
I completely agree. Completely agree, and I'm at peace with that.
You're a man that can wear many hats, mate. That's how I describe it.
We're probably not using the term hat.
Maybe not.
Because there'll be a few people that laughed at that comment.
Yeah, no doubt.
You are. Listen, Pete, you're spot on. You know, and if we in our 40s, I mean, I'm 45, and if I'm that old.
Yeah, so am I.
If I haven't recognised my strengths and my weaknesses now, then you're going to spend the next 10 years searching for it, and you have to create some level of backstop. As I say, this is not about being all holistic and woo and spiritual, but there has to be an element of, you got to know who you are. You have to, because if you're going to market yourself as a brand and as a brand ambassador for who I am, then I've got to be honest with myself as well.
Man, there'll be so many people watching this. Like, obviously, some people are going to be attracted to, having a permanent role in that company, and having a career and, and a pension, everything else, and a set on holidays. And there'll be a lot of people who are completely going, I want to have the life this guy's had. I know you probably had ups and downs, of course, it's journey, but it sounds like, mate, you've had a pretty good time doing what you've done.
It's been emotional. It's been emotional. It's been adventurous, and it's been, people say you're so lucky, but I actually like to turn that on its head, and I say you make your own luck.
Yeah, 100%.
You make your own luck, and don't get me wrong. This leads back to what we were talking about at the start of the interview and start of the pod. That about people that are giving you the chuck up. I didn't need to mention anybody's name today. This could have just been me, but that's not who I am. The people that have helped me, supported me, loved me, cared about me, and actually shown me respect and courtesy and given me the opportunity to go and do a job on their behalf. Well, I'd like to think that I've really sort of stuck my flag in the sand and done a really good job for them. Haven't always got it right, and I really understand that, but everything's a learning, and I've had to really, really learn, and keep sort of wheeling back on itself. But yeah, where does this year hold? Where do the next sort of 5 years hold? It's strange because there is a lot of stuff of how I am day to day is reflective on how I was as a kid, and I can't ever give that person an answer. And as frustrating as that is, where people sort of tend to say, where can you see yourself in 5 years? Well, I'll be 50 then, and I'd love to say, oh, I'm going to be here, I'll have done this. But I just don't know.
Gladiator 3.
Gladiator 3, yeah. Well, I don't know. They're
doing another one, aren't they?
Yeah, I think they are. Mate, it's been a pleasure, mate. They always just turn into a bit of a chat, don't they? But it's some good sound advice there, mate. And I think you're proof that, you keep giving good, you get good back. So
I really, really appreciate your time, guys. Thanks for listening to me, and thank you for giving me the platform to just be myself and be honest. I think there'll be people there that will have either known me. I'm either Marmite, either like me or you don't like me. I'm definitely a character, but a character who cares about other people too. But you guys, play a huge and important part in my journey at the moment too as well. So thanks so much for you and the team. I really appreciate that, guys.
I don't actually like Marmite, but thank you, mate. I do like you, mate. Yeah. I like you a lot, mate. It's been awesome, mate. It's been a pleasure having you on.
Excellent.
Cheers,
Thanks,
Romano.
guys. Thank you so much, boys. Cheers.